Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Around the Paul podcast, and we're glad to have you back for another episode. It's episode 2, and we're back with you with a lot of exciting news and happenings around the Clemson athletic program. We've got some special guys who have been a great part of the Clemson athletic program doing big things on the professional level we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to have a lot of fun here. We hope everybody enjoys it as well. I'm joined by Griffin Barfield and Clifton Kennedy. And guys, hope your week's been great. How you guys doing tonight? And hey, as Coach Swinney always says, it's a great day to be a Clemson Tiger.
Yes,
absolutely. And the week's been great. I will say that I did take a tumble. I broke my wrist, so I'm out for a couple weeks.
Oh.
But yeah, great way to start the podcast talking about my broken wrist. But besides that, it's been a great week, and I'm excited to talk some more Clemson sports.
Let's do it.
Yeah, and how about
it, man? I've been.
How's your week, man?
Yeah, man, it's been great. Again, y'all, I said this last week. I had my daughter last week, and we've been by the pool for like 5 out of the 6 days. So it's been really good. Been really good.
Hey, no better place to be when it's hot outside. It has certainly been that. One of the hotter Julys I can remember. But tell you what, speaking of things that are hot, there's a lot of things hot off the presses for Clemson athletic news. And one of the things that just took place was the Major League Baseball amateur draft. And right off the top, man, I tell you what, there's a lot of guys with their names attached to Clemson that were taken in this Major League draft, and some guys that I think are going to be outstanding professional baseball players. Griffin, I'll tell you what, you hate to lose some of these guys, especially if they sign professional contracts. But at the same time, it's an exciting opportunity for even more Clemson guys to pursue their professional dreams, right?
Exactly. And, it does suck, like you said, that we're not going to see them at Doug Kingsmore Stadium repping the orange and white, but you got to feel good for him. Obviously, going right out of high school, going right into the, major leagues is obviously a dream for all of these baseball players. And even for those that did play for Clemson, guys like Caden Grice, Cooper Ingle, Ryan Emmons, it's just a great feeling for them, and just kind of support them for whatever they're going to do.
Right. And, I don't think as you said, you hate to lose these guys and players of this caliber. But one thing that we've seen Coach Bakich do, just in his first season at the helm, is he's not afraid to go out and get guys out of the transfer portal. He was actually quite, at least to me, he was very fluent in using the transfer portal. So while you're not getting some of these guys, I'm sure he has a plan. He's going to go out and find quality players. He did it in his first year, resulted in an ACC championship. So I don't think there's any reason to believe that he can't or won't do that again.
Oh, no, certainly. I think that, especially when it comes to baseball, especially when it comes to, losing prospects to the professional leagues, I think baseball is the biggest one. I think, you have to go for the transfer portal. You have to be a little bit more aggressive. So I like what Eric Bakich is doing so far, grabbing some guys from, the mid majors, and then hopefully bringing in some new freshmen for the spring.
Right. And one thing we saw was he brought in several of his guys from Michigan, where, of course, he was the head coach prior to coming to Clemson. He's very familiar with that part of the country. He's familiar with those programs geographically in that location. So, honestly, I wouldn't be too terribly surprised to see him go back to that well and try to get some guys from those big-time programs up in the North and the Midwest.
Definitely. And I think, sticking to your roots is something that, works for a lot of coaches. I mean, you see it even in the professional leagues, kind of sticking with people that, potentially might have coached them before, coached them in college, something like that. So I think, if Eric Bakich is going back to, the Midwest, going to Michigan, going to that area, I think it could definitely be a huge W for Clemson.
Right. And Clifton, this is something that all of the major baseball programs, they go through this type of attrition. You've got highly rated guys who are committed. They wind up being drafted and sign professional contracts. And then you lose guys who you've had in your program for 2 or 3 years as they start their professional journeys as well. So this isn't something that's new to Clemson or to any of these major programs. So how do you expect Clemson baseball to respond? What do you see Coach Bakich doing?
Man, after this first season and seeing how the guys responded after being down, that first part of the season, man, I will say this, it's going to be hard to lose a guy like Caden Grice, who got off to a slow start. He didn't have the great season last year as a junior or as a sophomore, sorry. And then he brought it kind of into the first part of this year, but that Georgia Tech series, he kind of he kind of went crazy and just kind of went a streak. But yeah, it's going to be hard to lose him. But just being paying attention to Clemson baseball and knowing how you can go out and get a guy from the transfer portal, I think is going to be great for the Tigers. And I don't know if y'all saw this, but Will Taylor said he's solely baseball now, no football anymore. So I think that's going to be huge for the baseball team. And I think it's with him solely focusing on baseball, he could be that guy that that takes over Caden's spot, in the offense. And so I do think one place that we're going to have to fill a need is first base, because that's where Caden played. And then when Caden pitched, that's where Amick played. So, to find somebody who can play first base on a consistent basis, I really think that's going to be a place it's going to be a place that I'm going to look at as a weakness going in. Unless I see something, in the fall or in the, spring, where they feel that need.
Right, I agree 100%. Yeah, first base, of course, it is an area of emphasis, and I think we'll see Coach Bakich go out and he'll do something, and he'll make a move to fill that spot and fill that need for sure. But Cliff, you touched on this, and Griffin will get your thoughts as well. But you just alluded to this, Cliff, that Will Taylor he's moving away from football. He's going to strictly concentrate on baseball. And not only is that a big thing for baseball, but it also has a ripple effect to the football program as well. We talked about this last week, that Clemson was one over the 85 scholarship limit, that something was going to have to give. A walk-on maybe was regrettably going to lose their scholarship to get down to that 85 scholarship limit. Well, that kind of took care of itself when Will Taylor has decided to concentrate on baseball. He was on scholarship for football. Now Coach Swinney and the Tigers, they're down to that 85 threshold. So it's kind of funny how things work themselves out sometimes.
Yeah, really is.
Yeah, and Griffin, what do you think that does for football-wise? Does that kind of take some type of mental load off Coach Swinney, knowing that he's now in a place where the situation kind of worked itself out, because he would have to agonize over who to take a scholarship from. He's so loyal to his players. So does that end up being a relief off of his shoulders?
I think so in some way. And obviously I think that, Swinney loves his walk-ons and he wants to do that feel-good story. And I think with Will Taylor leaving, it's going to put a little bit more responsibility on those freshman receivers and those guys that are kind of going to the next man up type of thing. But when it comes to Will Taylor, I think that this was probably the best move for his career. I think that he was going to do a lot better on the baseball team than he was football. I think, he was going to be a consistent player in that lineup when it came to being on the team for baseball. When football, obviously he had some snaps, he had some, plays that he'll be remembered for at memorial stadiums. But I think that, the best move is for baseball for him. And you're going to see him, thrive just only being able to play one sport. I think, doing that focus is really important for an athlete. So I think you're going to see a lot of progression out of Will Taylor.
No, I agree 100%. And, of course, wish him the best of luck as he concentrates on baseball. Expect him to be a huge part of the Clemson Tiger baseball program in 2024. And we're excited to see what he can do. And speaking of other Clemson athletes, we talked about the baseball players who were drafted. But it's not just the baseball guys who are having a chance to play professional sports and to have that chance at that level. Let's talk about a Clemson basketball player who now has that opportunity. Of course, the great guard, Hunter Tyson, he signed a free agent contract with the Denver Nuggets, the defending NBA champions. So not only does he have a chance to play professionally, but goodness gracious, guys, he has a chance to go play for the team that won the NBA title, probably has a good chance to repeat next year.
Definitely. And I think if you're going to a team that wants that, experience from a rookie, I think Hunter Tyson's the perfect pick. And you can look at Denver's whole draft class. There are two other guys, Jalen Pickett and Julian Strother. They're old guys. They're experienced guys. And I think it's the perfect pick. And, it's obviously a feel-good story for Hunter Tyson, working his way up and through the rotation. Now he's making $7 million, $7.7 million in his new contract. And he's been balling in the summer league too. He's had 21 and 16 in his first 2 games, kind of just showcasing what Clemson's all about. And, you know, their next game's on Friday. I will be tuning in. And I think that, you know, he's just going to be doing a great job. I think you're going to see a little bit of him in the rotation next year for Denver.
Yeah, I think so as well. He's a tremendous player. Griffin, as you said, he's just having some great games in the summer league right now. Look for big things out of Hunter Tyson. But while you hate to lose a guy like that, and we go back to that, and we'll talk about this in just a second as well, there's a big news, a big commitment coming out of the Clemson basketball program. And let's talk about that for just a minute. You've got a young man who just committed to Coach Brownell. His name is Dallas Thomas. He's a unanimous top 70 recruit in the country out of Little Rock, Arkansas. And I believe I read somewhere he is the second highest rated recruit that is committed to Coach Brownell in the Clemson basketball program. And I tell you what, guys, what a tremendous recruiting job and a big get for Coach Brownell.
I think it's the perfect start to the 2024 draft class. And I don't know if it was 2 or 3. I know that he had like the same rating around like PJ Hall. So it's kind of showing you what the type of guy he was. And I watched his highlight tape, and he plays exactly like Hunter Tyson. He's a great catch and shoot, stretch 4, power forward. He's a great shot blocker. They call him slim because of his frame. I think he's 6'8", 6'8". But I'm very excited to see him play for the Tigers, see him develop under Brad Brownell and try to, you know, untap that potential that he could potentially have.
Yeah, and Cliff, you know, what's your take on that? Certainly, players like that don't come around too often. It's hard to win the recruiting battles for guys like that because, quite simply, everybody wants them. And for Dallas to choose Clemson, what does that say about the trajectory of the basketball program and the confidence that some of these high-end recruits have and what Coach Brownell can do in carrying this program into the future?
Yeah, after last season and how good of a season they had, it's great that we can get a recruit like that. You know, we did get PJ Hall, but Clemson don't get these kind of recruits in basketball, and it's really nice to see the basketball program progress and be able to replace somebody like Tyson Hunter. Because normally you see a guy, you see the next season go down a little bit because they don't have that guy. So it's great that they can replace a guy like Tyson Hunter and move forward and just get better.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And certainly a big get. We'll be looking forward to watching how he does in a Tiger uniform. But we talk about recruiting. Let's switch our gears now to football recruiting. And there has been some big news in the last week. And Clifton, let's jump in for what you got.
Yeah, so I don't know if y'all saw this. Getting back to baseball for 1 second. I don't know if y'all saw this, but a former Clemson quarterback got drafted.
Yep,
in the MLB draft.
Absolutely. I think we'd be remiss not to talk about it.
Yep. So I'm very excited for DJ, and to see if like how he does in baseball, because I'll be honest with you, I didn't even know he played baseball. So that was another I didn't know moment. You know, I'm very excited to see how he does, or if he stays. I doubt he'll stay, but you know, I'm very excited to see, because I know his dad personally. So I'm just happy for his family.
Yeah, no doubt. And we wish DJ well. And, you know, for as maligned as he was at times in a Clemson uniform, you know, I don't think anybody could ever question that young man's heart and his willingness to work and willingness to win. I think it was just an unfortunate situation where some things didn't work out. But, you know, DJ Uiagalelei, he carried himself with nothing but class and integrity. And look, it's just the nature of the game. Sometimes things don't work out in a certain place, and you have to find somewhere that's a better fit for you. And hopefully Oregon State is that way for him this year in football. We wish him the best.
Yep.
%.
Yeah, for sure. But let's jump in now and talk about some football recruiting. And it was a big week for Clemson football on the recruiting trail. And unfortunately, maybe not for the reasons that you would hope. Clemson, of course, has been pursuing some big-time offensive line recruits here over the last several months, especially for the 2024 cycle. And two of those recruits have made their commitments to college programs. And unfortunately, neither of them were to Clemson. And we're talking about William Satterwhite and Fletcher Westphal. So, Griffin, let's cut to the chase right here. Clemson has, we'll call a spade, has struggled to land some of these big-time offensive line recruits in recent years. And these two young men were two that Thomas Alston really wanted. So, what gives when it comes to offensive line recruiting?
I think, it was definitely a disappointment to not have either William Satterwhite or Fletcher Westphal, who did commit to Florida, not commit to Clemson. And Satterwhite, it was between Clemson and Tennessee. And in something that I read, Satterwhite chose Tennessee because he wanted the play time. And, Clemson couldn't guarantee that he could get snaps as a freshman. And, 100%, I wish him the best. But, I think that you still have a handful of guys that Thomas Alston is looking at for the 2024 class. So I wouldn't push the panic button yet. I know there's, 8 or 9 more players on the offensive line that could commit to the Tigers, but, it's definitely something to look at. I know Casey Poe, as well as another guy that the Tigers are looking at, who should be making his commitment like any minute now. So I think that it's just, important to monitor, but not push the panic button yet.
Agreed. And another guy that Clemson missed on, and his commitment came just several days after William Satterwhite, and that was Fletcher Westphal. And I think you could kind of see the writing on the wall that things had been trending away from Clemson and Satterwhite's recruitment. But Westphal really was kind of the shocker, because even as soon as 24 hours before his commitment, he seemed to be a 100% lock to Clemson. At least all of the recruiting insiders felt that way. And then just in the final 10 to 12 hours before his commitment, all of the crystal balls began flipping to Florida. So that was a real head scratcher, at least for me anyway. So what do you think happened there?
I honestly really don't know. I don't really know that much, kind of the insider stuff when it comes to, high school recruitment, but 6'7.5", 335 pounds. This guy was, I think that it's a huge loss for Clemson. I think, it's like you said, Garrett, it's kind of like a shot to the chest where, all these analysts are making sure that he's crystal ball to Clemson, and then he flips. It's definitely a head scratcher. And, I'm not really sure what went behind, Fletcher Westphal, but I think that, he's going to Billy Napier in Florida, who was on the Clemson coaching side. So I don't really know what happened, but.
Yeah, and Cliff, any thoughts on that? And at least from your vantage point, what you've seen or read, or any rumblings that you've heard, anything that you could think that might have played a factor in his going from a near Clemson lock to heading to Gainesville?
I really don't know. Again, it's a head scratcher, and maybe we can bring Adam on next week or something. I don't know. Maybe we can. He's our insider guy, so maybe he can come on and kind of give us some insight about, what happened.
Yeah, we'd love to have him on.
So, yeah, for sure. But yeah, again, it's a head scratcher, and I really don't know.
Yeah.
And, but go
Garrett,
ahead.
yeah, so I actually just looked on Twitter. Casey Poe just committed to Alabama, the top, interior lineman. So once again, like you said, it's just another big loss, but hopefully it's, something to monitor, not to push the panic button yet, but, I think it's a loss for the Tigers as well, losing the top offensive lineman or offensive guard in 2024.
Yeah, those were 3 guys that were very high on the recruiting board. And so now it goes to plan B or C. But again, Coach Swinney, he's a coach. He always gets the guys, maybe not the guys that some of the fans want, but he gets the guys that the program needs. And if there's anybody that can find that diamond in the rough, and we've seen it time and time again, Nebo Swinney is probably one of the best in the country doing that.
Definitely.
For sure.
I think that he finds those guys that are willing to work for their position and work with the heart that they have. So if anybody can turn, a guy that might not be the brightest coming out of high school into, a draft caliber lineman, it would be Dabo Swinney, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And while we're on the subject of recruiting, I think there might be some happier news on the horizon. Yeah, it's as you said, Griffin, it sucks to lose out on 3 offensive line recruits as good as Poe, Satterwhite, and Westfall. But you've got some other big-time guys that are on Clemson's recruiting board that are getting ready to make their pledges here in the coming days, in the next several weeks. And you've got one that's coming up on July 15th. It's 2 defensive backs, actually. You've got Ashton Hampton is the young man's name who's committing on July 15th. And then just about a little over a week later, you've got Corian Gibson, who's another highly rated recruit. And looking at my notes, he's committing on July the 22nd. And both of these young men have spoke very highly of Clemson. I think there's a feel that the Tigers are in good shape to possibly land both of them. And so while the mood's a bit tempered by losing these guys on the offensive line, you get these 2 guys, it's just another shot in the arm to this already really, really good 2024 recruiting class.
Definitely. And these 2 guys are crystal ball to Clemson, Ashton Hampton, which I think is a big win, being from Tallahassee, Florida, and being offered by Florida State. I think that just speaks in itself. It's a huge win for the Tigers. And talking about Corian Gibson, the corner, Lancaster, Texas, once again, you're kind of trying to dodge the Texas Tech, TCU offers. So I think that, if these 2 defensive backs do commit to Clemson, which, they are crystal ball to do so, I think that it's a huge win no matter what. Talking about these offensive linemen, not being the best recruiting class, I think that it's a huge W to get these 2 guys.
Yeah, it's already a top 10 recruiting class by a lot of metrics. And Clifton, you add these 2 guys, you figure that's going to vault this class into the top 6 or 7 if they get those guys, and still even more on the board other than those 2. So this class has a chance to finish as really one of the best in Clemson history if it keeps trending in the way that it's going.
Yeah, Corey Gibson, he's got Ohio State, Texas, and Alabama on his list. So, yeah, I mean, if we could get a guy like that, just with all the other cornerback, with the defense we got now, I think it would just make our defense that much better.
Yeah, I agree 100%. There's a lot to be excited about, and so we'll see coming up in the next really 8 to 9 days as Ashton Hampton and Corian Gibson get ready to make their pledges. As Griffin said, they're crystal ball to Clemson, and we'll see if that holds up, if anybody else can try to close in at the last minute. But these are 2 very talented young men, and they seem to be very high on the Tigers, and we hope we can add them to the fold for sure. So that's kind of what's going on in the recruiting world right now, and hopefully by the time we film next week's episode, we'll have a lot more to tell you on that. Hopefully a few more commitments have made their pledge at that point. But let's get on to another topic right now, and this is one as the season closes in on less than 2 months away. It just really seems to be, and you just kind of have to face palm from time to time that you keep going down this road or have to keep talking about it. But there still are people out there, and a lot of them, more than I feel like there should be, that just continue to doubt the Tigers. And you can talk recency bias or anything that you want to, but people forget. People are already writing this Clemson team off. I've read 3 stories within the last week that are just outright predicting Duke to win the season opener. And for the life of me, I cannot understand or fathom the doubt around this program just 3 years removed from a 6th consecutive college football playoff appearance. Within the last 8 years, you've had 4 trips to the national championship game, 2 national titles, and how soon people forget what this Clemson program has done in recent memory. And with the guys that you have on the roster right now, with the ones that you have coming in, not only do I not see Clemson falling off anytime soon, but I think it's a fool's errand to doubt this program and what Coach Swinney's doing. 2 years doesn't mean the fall of a dynasty. It took Rome longer to fall than that. So, where do the doubters come from? And is it just that they love the idea of Clemson failing, or do they truly believe that these things that they're spitting out there?
Well, surely, obviously, everyone loves a new competitor in the ring. And I think when people are looking at the ACC standings, Florida State pops out. And don't get me wrong, Florida State's an incredible team. They're returning a lot of starters. They're well coached. But I think, kind of centralizing around why the national media is doubting Clemson, I think it comes to the way the season ended. And it wasn't the way you liked. Obviously, you had a bad loss to Notre Dame. You had the loss to South Carolina at home. The Orange Bowl was kind of a little bit underwhelming than what people thought. So I think that has kind of centralized around it. But obviously, Dabo Swinney has been making moves behind the scenes, which we'll get to in a little bit. But I think that, the way the season ended has kind of like put that in the forefront, and how Florida State has kind of trumped Clemson in a lot of these, way too early prediction standings. And, these sports books are picking them over Clemson.
And Clifton, I think a lot of these pundits and analysts, prognosticators, whatever title that you want to give them, in a sense, I feel like they talk out of both sides of their mouth from time to time, because they're so quick to write Clemson off, but in the next breath, they laud Coach Swinney hiring Garrett Riley and tout what a wonderful job he's going to do for the offense, modernizing it, getting back to a more wide open scheme. So, we're not talking the French Revolution or Marie Antoinette here. You can't have your cake and eat it too. So it's either that Clemson is on the rebound and Garrett Riley is going to completely revitalize the program, or it's just going to be more of the same and they're going to continue to fall further off the cliff. So, which is it?
I mean, I don't see us falling off the cliff. We might struggle, like I was saying last week. We might struggle coming out of the gate, trying to figure out the offense, I really don't think we'll struggle on defense. I think our defense is pretty stacked. But we might come right out of the gate and blow them out of the water. You just never know with a new offensive coordinator. And I'm not going to say a new quarterback, but a new starter, who only has really 2 starts underneath his belt. It's a wait and see game. And it's way too early to even predict this. If you ask me, it's still early, but that's what we do. The football is a year-round sport. And that's just what they do, is they predict things, and then that next sentence they say the totally opposite thing. But you were talking about Florida State, for them, it's one of those things. Show me what you got, because they got all the recruits. Yeah, they're out doing us in a lot of these polls, but that don't mean jack squat until you show me on the field. Like, what are you going to do in the first 3 games until you play us, or the first 4 games until you play us? And what are you going to do on the field when you do play us? Right. So yeah, that's how I feel about Florida State. And I'll be honest with you, the South Carolina loss did put a bad taste in my mouth, because we didn't lose to them for 7 straight years. And so, and that Tennessee loss, man, we're the better orange team. And so that's kind of where I am on all that. But the doubters are going to doubt and the haters are going to hate. So let them hate, and we'll get on that bus and ride it all the way.
Right. Coach Swinney, of course, he coined the term a few years back, the Roy bus, the rest of y'all. So either get on or get left in the dust. But either way, we're going to ride or die with the Clemson Tigers. So either join us or pull against us. That's fine. But pick one and stick with it, right?
That's correct.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And I think just to finish up touching on the topic, I think we talk about the perception, or the national media talks about the perception of Clemson football. And, it really is a college football landscape of what have you done for me lately? And a lot of times, unfortunately, that can change from year to year. So in the landscape of college football, 2 years or back-to-back 3-loss seasons for a program with Clemson's expectations, unfortunately, is a very long time, at least to some.
Definitely. And I think a lot of that comes to losing your prospects. I think, a lot of the perception is coming at the defensive line, losing guys like Miles Murphy, Brian Brzee, even maybe a Trenton Simpson in there as well. I think that it's a little bit uneasy when talking about the perception when obviously we know that Clemson is reloading incredibly with guys like Peter Woods. And, I'm not sure what other people think, but I think that last year putting Cade Klubnik in that Orange Bowl game, putting him in, games like the Notre Dame, Syracuse game, I think it's important. I think it connects him with receivers. I think under Garrett Riley, he's going to thrive. I think it's important to, even you do lose and you did have a pretty bad loss, it gives him experience at the national level. And in a New Year's Six bowl for a freshman quarterback who made his first start that day, I think it's important. So when talking about the perception, I think that as Clemson fans, we know a little bit more, not in that way, but I think we have a better understanding that I think on the offensive side, we might do a little bit better than people think.
Right. And we see things because we do follow it more closely. We see things that happen from a closer proximity than I think people around the country do or would care to pay attention to. And so those subtleties, they do exist. And for us, I think it's a little bit easier to pick up on those. And so we might have a little bit better gauge of the trajectory and how things are going than people say on the West Coast or the Pac-12, the Big 12, Big 10, and people who tout those programs. And so really, I think when it all boils down to it, it's semantics anyway. So you can say what you want about Clemson football. We can say what we want. But at the end of the day, once the ball's spotted on September 4th, we're going to find out. We're going to get a definitive answer. And the coming months after that, ultimately it'll be decided on the field. And we'll either be proven wrong or the people who have doubted Clemson, they'll be proven wrong. Either way, somebody will be wrong. Somebody will be right.
Right. And even when Cliff talked about Florida State, we don't know anything about these teams. We just know stuff on paper. We don't know anything until that ball snaps Labor Day weekend, and we'll go from there. But, when looking at the stuff on paper, this is what we think.
Yeah, and before we move on, Cliff, anything else you want to add to the perception that Clemson football is somehow falling off or is on the precipice of becoming irrelevant? Like Griffin and I said, certainly we don't see it that way. So what say you?
Right.
I'm behind Dabo, and I think he knows where this program is at, and I don't think we're anywhere close to the cliff.
No, I agree 100%.
And that's my name. So,
well, I was really trying to avoid during the entire course of this conversation. I was trying to avoid when I said falling off a cliff. I wanted to say no pun intended, and I was really trying to stop myself. You beat me to it.
Be clever.
Yeah.
That would be clever to put in.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I tell you what, I think we should talk about before we get out of here tonight. We've talked about Clemson recruiting and all these guys who are making a big name for themselves or now have the chance to make a big name for themselves on the professional level. Why don't we talk about a former Clemson guy, a Clemson pitcher who has not only made a name for himself on the professional level, he is quickly rising to legendary status across Major League Baseball. And, of course, we're talking about the mustachioed one, Spencer Strider of the Atlanta Braves, who just last night, I say participated in because he didn't get a chance to pitch. He just started 2 days prior, but he had a chance to participate in his first All-Star game in Seattle. And the mustache is taking baseball by storm.
Absolutely. And, I think I'm the odd man out here. I think I'm the odd man out at a Clemson school close to Atlanta. I'm a Mets fan, which sucks because you have to go up against Spencer Strider. Yeah. Bring it in. I know. Yeah. But Spencer Strider is nothing but incredible. I think that, he's a strikeout artist. I was actually very surprised not to see him, take an inning or maybe like a couple of outs yesterday because, he's incredible and he's very good. And, I don't consider myself a Braves fan, but I consider myself a Spencer Strider fan. Obviously seeing a guy who, who was an alumni at my school, I want to see him succeed. And, I wish him nothing but the best, but against my Mets, it's tough. It's tough to see him as the opposite guy on the mounds. It's tough. Definitely. it's definitely tough.
I'm
And
telling
Cliff,
you, man. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
no. I was just going to ask you. We talk about Clemson being so great at finding diamonds in the rough, and Strider. This was a guy that, we had good numbers at Clemson. It wasn't anything that was eye popping, but the Braves take him in the 4th round the year he was drafted. And we talk about Clemson finding those gems in the skies. Well, the Atlanta Braves certainly found one as well. I don't know that anybody could have expected or predicted Strider's just meteoric rise to fame, but once he burst onto the scene, the Braves brought him up as a lone reliever, and I think it probably took 3 appearances for them to realize this guy's just too good to use in low leverage situations. We've got to find places for him to pitch, and once they did, the rest is history, really.
Yeah, I mean, I watched him the last 2 years he played at Clemson. And the last year, before he got drafted by the Braves, I mean, he had a really good year by most expectations for him. He kind of, again, at Clemson, if I'm not mistaken, he started out as a reliever. And then that last year, he came into the weekend starter role, if I'm not mistaken. And he just came into his own. But I'll be honest with you, when he got drafted by the Braves, I was excited, and because I am a Braves fan, and
Same here. Sorry, Griffin.
Yeah,
You're all
and
good. It's okay. I know I'm the odd man out here.
Yeah. So, but I never thought he would come up in the major leagues that fast. Like I never thought he would hit the major leagues as fast as he did. I never thought he would reach 200 strikeouts as fast as he did. It's amazing. And to see him keep it up in year 2 is amazing. I just love seeing Clemson players in the majors. And it's great to see him, do good stuff for the Braves.
Right. And one thing that really impresses me about Spencer is he's a very cerebral pitcher. And to me, I think he's great at making adjustments. If something's going wrong, he works very hard to figure out what it is and how to fix it. Let's go back to June. He had back-to-back starts that, to put it frankly, were just not very good. The first one, and Griffin, I know this will make you smile, was against your Mets. And they hammered him, 8 runs in less than 4 innings. And then his next time out, gave up, I believe it was 4 home runs to the Detroit Tigers, who, sorry to any Detroit fans out there, if you're being honest, they're just not a very good baseball team. But 2 rough starts, and then he comes back. He figures out what was going wrong. And since then, Spencer's made 4 starts. I think he's only given up, I believe, 4 or 5 earned runs in the last 4 starts, and is just continuing to strike batters out at an absurd pace. And it just goes to show not only is he a talented pitcher, he's a smart one as well. And I think that they both go hand in hand in making him the successful pitcher that he is.
Yeah, he reminds me of Atlanta Braves pitchers of old back in the 90s, especially Greg Maddux, just how cerebral he is and like you were saying, that's who he reminds me of. I'm not going to say that he is. I'm not trying to compare him to Greg Maddux because Greg Maddux is a hard pitcher to compare anybody to, but he just reminds me of Greg Maddux and those pitchers in the 90s.
Right, and I think especially from the cerebral standpoint and being smart and knowing what he needs to do and what adjustments he needs to make. And Griffin, I think that also lends itself to his durability. He's figured out a way to pitch that is sustainable and repeatable. And you look at a guy, so a lot of times you see players who throw 99, 100 miles per hour and go max effort every time out there, particularly when they're starters. They either tend to flame out or they have injury problems, elbow problems. And we haven't seen that from Strider. When I watch him pitch, and you can tell me if you've seen the same thing or if it looks that way to you, but it's a very simplistic delivery. It's one that doesn't have a lot of moving parts to it, but it gets maximum result out of minimum movement. And I think that is very much key to keeping him sustainable, keeping him healthy, and it's allowed him to be as successful as he has.
Definitely. And, as a Mets fan, I do know guys that do throw 100 miles an hour. Tommy John, elbow injury. Jacob deGrom, prime example. But, I think that Strider does an incredible job of just maintaining his health well. I think it's important. And besides, I think he did get Tommy John Wall at Clemson. I think he did. I looked at his stats. I think he did in his sophomore year before he got drafted to Atlanta. But I think besides that injury, I haven't heard anything that, for a longevity of time that he's been out for. Maybe like a start or two every now and then. But I think that he just does an incredible job. And that comes with Garrett, like you said, delivery. I think that's important just to maintain, the elbow and try to prevent, those injuries that do come with pitching at very high speeds.
Right. And Clifton, again, going back, you watched Spencer Strider play at Clemson, and he's always had the reputation of being known as a two-pitch pitcher. He's got the devastating fastball that he can run up 99, 100 miles per hour. He mixes it with the slider, but you don't often see two-pitch pitchers last and have sustained success in Major League Baseball only throwing those two pitches. Because if one of them's off on any given night, then hitters can just sit on the other one, and it just makes life very difficult. So this year, you've seen Strider, and he began to incorporate it ever so slightly at the end of last season. He's developing a changeup, and really in the last month, you're seeing him work it in more and more. I believe his last start against Tampa, he threw about 14 or 15% of his pitches were on the changeup. If he can keep that third pitch, continue to develop it, and it be successful as well, add it to the fastball slider combination, then Spencer Strider goes from becoming a really, really good pitcher with an overpowering fastball to really one that becomes almost unhittable when he's on.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, with that 99 mile an hour, 100 mile an hour fastball, him adding that changeup, I mean, that's hard to hit. That changeup would be hard to hit after you see a 99 mile an hour fastball. So him coming up with that pitch and having three pitches instead of two, like you said, two pitch pitchers don't last that long. So if he can keep that up, stay healthy, and just do what he needs to do every night and focus on himself and not the batter or the pressure, everything around him, then I think he's going to be great. I mean, he's already great, if you ask me. He's one of the best pitchers that I've seen for the Atlanta Braves, in the last 5 years at least. Yeah, I mean, he's just got to do what he needs to do and work on that changeup.
Yeah, and you talk about how great he's been. Just some of the numbers, and they really are staggering. I believe he's got, the last I looked, it's either, I believe, 164 or 166 strikeouts this year. That is most in Major League Baseball by a pretty good margin. It's just an insane number. And right now, his strikeout rate per 9 innings is 14.27. And that would be the second highest of all time. And the guy that's just a slight bit ahead of him, Griffin, is your guy, Jacob deGrom, when he pitched for the Mets. But to give you an idea of just how close Strider is to deGrom's pace, Jacob deGrom's mark was 14.28 strikeouts per 9 innings. Spencer Strider is 14.27. So that's about as close as you can get, and it's just a historic pace for strikeouts.
Definitely, and another thing that I saw while, looking into Spencer Strider, he became the fastest pitcher to hit 100 strikeouts in a year in 61 innings. The fastest person before that was Jacob deGrom. So, comparing these two guys, I think, Strider, I think, has had more success, and he could have a lot more success just by staying healthy. I think that's the most important thing. I think that he can be a Braves legend by the end of it. I think that he could be one of the best pitchers, in this era of baseball. He just needs to stay healthy, and I hope that he does.
Yeah, and Clifton, it's just a lot of fun to watch, right?
He really is. Like, I hate that they're on Bally all the time because I don't really get it that often. It sucks. But yeah, I mean, I love watching him when I do get a chance. Thank you, Lacey, for letting me use your Bally Sports login so I can watch him. So yeah. I just love watching him. That's it. I mean, those stats that you brought up, those stats that you did bring up, are amazing. I mean, I think he'll hit 200 strikeouts. I don't know, in the next 10 games, maybe. I mean, as fast, at least by August. I mean, if he gets 9, 10 strikeouts a game, I mean, he'll have them, in the next 10 games.
Yeah, on pace for over 300 strikeouts, which is just an incredible season by anyone's standards or metrics. So hopefully he continues it on. And I don't think he was healthy in the playoffs last year. Had a bad start against Philadelphia in the division series, but I think he's shaking that off. And if everything holds the way it is, then I think he's a big part of that rotation coming down the home stretch of the season and into the postseason. Last I looked, I think the Braves are on pace right now for about 108 or 109 wins. And he's a big part of that.
Yes, he is.
I saw the 110. I think watching something for the All-Star game, but once Max Fried gets back, I think that's arguably one of the best 1-2 punches in the league. And you're gonna have them for a long time, I think. I don't know much about the Braves as you guys do, but I don't know if Max Fried is locked up.
Free agent after next season.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so if you do lock him up, I think that is a 1-2 punch that, even in the NL East, I think that in the whole league, it's just a force to be reckoned with, as all positives for me.
Griffin, I'll say this, and I'm not sure if you or Clifton were aware of this or not, and it's not in any way relevant to Clemson, but we'll throw it out there as long as we're talking about these great major league pitchers and Max Fried. When Max Fried was in high school, the top 3 in the starting rotation on his high school team, it was Max Fried, Jack Flaherty for the Cardinals, and Lucas Giolito for the White Sox. That was your 1, 2, 3 in the rotation, all on the same high school team at the same time. Good luck.
Crazy.
I think I knew that about Giolito. I didn't know Flaherty was in there. That's wild. Oh, my Lord.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's nuts.
Yeah, so good luck to anybody that faced that team for sure. But I tell you what, guys, I think that's just about it for us tonight as we wrap up episode 2. We've had a lot of fun doing this so far, and we're going to have we're going to go back to the laboratory and back to brainstorming. We're going to have a lot of good stuff to talk about next week as well. I'll tell you what, before we jump off here, I've got to say the response to the first episode, it's had so many views, a lot of positive feedback and response from people. And I tell you what, that's to us, it makes us feel good. It's very encouraging and just makes us feel like this is something that we're going to have so much fun doing and can be really successful for all of our Clemson Nation out there, spread all over the country and here in South Carolina. So, guys, I tell you what, that was just phenomenal to see all of the support and the positive feedback after last week.
Yeah, and it's been awesome just to, over these past 2 episodes, just discussing Clemson sports. This is my first podcast. I'm a little bit new to everything here, but just seeing the feedback, even by family and friends on my side. I did post it to Twitter, so I did get a little bit of feedback there. But just across the whole thing, just thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm excited for the next few weeks going into football season, just talking more Clemson sports, just what I like to do.
Exactly, man. Exactly. I mean, it amazes me because I'll be honest with you, I'm not a podcast type of person to be on here as a talking head, but I've had fun with you guys, so it's been great. And I love, like I said last week, I'm starting to love every Wednesday getting on here and seeing y'all's awesome, handsome faces and talking some Clemson sports. Yep. So,
and see, here I was worried that I would break the camera on my computer. I guess not.
Yeah. You almost did. We almost didn't get started.
Hey, you're right. You're right.
That's true.
That is true. Tonight. Yeah. Thanks for the reminder.
But yeah, man, I'm excited about the weeks to come. So I think my dog is too. So
yeah, for sure. And it's been a lot of fun, even through 2 episodes. And hey, we're just getting started. I mean, we're still 6 weeks away from the start of football season, and once that hits, it's going to ramp up, and we'll have more things to talk about than we even know what to do with. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Right.
So we're going to say good night for now until next week. Griffin, Clifton, anything you want to say before we hit the road for the night?
Good night, and go Tigers.
Have a great week. Don't break a bone like I did, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, no tough breaks for anybody out there. Griffin took one for the team for us. We hope he heals up quick. No, we will. And we'll see everybody next week. And as Clifton said, until then, go Tigers.